Alright guys, so we are going to make just a very simple white bread recipe. So I always start by sifting my flour. I don't like any chunks of flour once the bread is cooked. Now I make this bread recipe every week for my daughter's lunches. I kept forgetting to buy bread all the time at the grocery store. So I decided that I was going to learn how to make bread, and before this I did not really bake things at all. So this was one of the first things that I started baking on like a regular basis. So that's why we have a gigantic dog food sized bag of flour, because I make bread every single week for my daughter to take to lunch with her. You guys will see my son running in and out of this video. So if you see the little I love you pop up, it's because he is somewhere in there. He was going back and forth between me baking bread and watching his dad out the sliding glass door mow the grass. When I was sifting this flour, he kept saying, "Mommy, bite. Mommy, bite," and I had to explain to him that it is not anything edible yet. We have to make it. So for this bread recipe, it takes 1 tablespoon of dry active yeast. I will put the full recipe in the description for you guys. So I'm just mixing it in with 2 cups of warm water. They say, I don't ever check the temperature of my water, but they say that it needs to be like warm enough that you could give a baby a bath in it. So not too warm, anywhere from I believe 105 degrees to 115 degrees. It just helps activate the yeast. I also put a teaspoon of sugar in there because it also needs that so that it can activate and get all foamy on the top. Once it's foamy on the top, you're good to go. In my mixing bowl, I'm going to start with 4 cups of flour. These are half cups that I'm using, so I'm going to do 8 of those. I'm also going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt, a 1/4 cup of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of oil. Here's me adding the 1/4 cup of sugar. My 2 teaspoons of salt. And 2 tablespoons of oil. I just use vegetable oil. You just want to use a neutral oil that doesn't have a lot of flavor. You don't want your bread to taste oily. I'm going to put on my dough hook here and pour in my yeast. You can see that little layer of foam on the top, which means it's ready to use. I always start the mixer out really slow just so it doesn't fling flour out of the bowl all over my kitchen. And then I slowly, as it incorporates all the flour, turn it up to 5 on the mixer. You're going to start with 4 cups of flour. You're going to have to add more. I always just start with a little bit less and add as needed. If you make this recipe often, you will get used to what it's supposed to look like and feel like, and you'll know if you need to add more flour to it. When I lift this up, it's going to be really runny. Obviously, we have to add more flour. I'm going to add another cup. That's going to bring us to 5 cups of flour total so far. And again, I'm going to start slow and slowly increase the speed up to 5. So now the dough is starting to form a ball inside of the mixing bowl. And what you want to see is the dough pull away from the sides on its own. So you can see the sides of the mixing bowl there. There's still a lot of dough that's sticking. So it needs more flour, it's too wet. So now we're at 5.5 cups of flour. Now we're really going to see it start to form that ball. So now it's formed a ball. It's still just a little bit too wet. You always want to test it with a clean finger. So you want to be able to touch it and it be slightly tacky, but not stick to your finger. So here it still needed just a little bit more flour. So we added another 1/2 cup, bringing us to 6 cups of flour. And now we can see, because of that last 1/2 cup of flour, the dough is pulling away from the edges on its own. So here I'm just gonna clean it off the dough hook, because a lot of times flour will get stuck to the dough hook and you don't want any flour chunks in your bread. And then we're just going to keep mixing. So now we can see the dough has fully pulled away from the sides on its own. It's formed a ball. It is ready for its first rise. I'm going to test it again with my finger and make sure it's tacky but doesn't stick. This dough has to rise twice. All I did was transferred it into another bowl, covered it in oil, spun it around a few times to make sure the whole ball of dough was covered in oil, and then covered it with a tea towel for 2 hours. We're gonna punch the air out of the dough. So you just wanna try to pop some of those air bubbles. Then we're going to put it on, I pre-cut my parchment paper so it fits my pans, but we're gonna put this dough onto a cutting board. And we are going to dump it out and use our bench scraper to cut it in half. I roll it up a little bit just so I can get like a better idea of what exactly half would be. And then we're going to chop it in half. I roll half of it into a loaf shape. And then I squeeze my edges together just so it all forms together. So now I'm going to set it to the side and cover it back up with the towel and let it do its second rise. You want to let it rise until it's about 1 inch above the edge of the pan. The other half I form into a ball because I save it for pizza dough. I store it in the refrigerator. I can use it for up to 7 days after I make it. I did film a video on making pizza if you want to watch it. I preheated the oven to 350. I baked it for 30 minutes. I forgot to show you guys me putting it in the oven, but I baked it for anywhere from 33 to 35 minutes. You just want to make sure that when you take it out of the oven and tap on it, it has like a hollow sound. And then I just take a stick of unsalted butter and put it on the top so it's all nice and shiny. And there you go, homemade bread. You want to make sure you let it cool for at least 30 minutes before you slice it, or else the bread will like ball up. Wait at least 30 minutes, have some warm bread. I just let this sit out on the counter for 3 to 4 hours so it can completely cool, and then that way I can put it in an airtight container and use it for my daughter's lunches all week long.